Really excited to be interviewing Sarah, actually, because Sarah was part of a mentoring group I ran, I guess, a couple of years ago now, Sarah. And you absolutely flew, especially at the back end of that. So I remember how you suddenly kind of got this momentum and flew. So I'm really excited to kind of see where you are in your business and to dig into what your business is and how you grew it and what some of the challenges are and, you know, how you're kind of feeling about things generally. But just to give you the context, we've got an hour together as a group. As usual, I'll be doing about something in the region of 30 to 40 minutes of interview, and then we'll go to Q&A with you guys and see what comes up. So Sarah, on that note, recording's going, let me welcome you in, and you'll just tell us who you are, what your business is, and just give us a bit of context.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So yeah, I think I do a lot of facilitation. I've got a background in theatre, so I don't want to talk for ages and ages, just with you passively listening. So I'll just maybe talk for a bit, and we can have questions sooner rather than later, and then I'll talk a bit more. But yes, I don't sound like it, but my entire career has been based up in Scotland. I'm in Glasgow. I was originally from Slough. But yeah, I've been up here for all of my working life, background in theatre, and then I ran a young people's theatre company in Glasgow, working in some of the most disadvantaged communities of the city for 12, 13 years, which is almost long enough to get a carriage clock, I think, in sort of third sector charity arts kind of world. But I became the grumpy old lady in the corner who felt like we'd done everything and we'd tried everything before, and I was stopping my brilliant team from progressing. So I knew I needed to move on. So I quit without anything in place, but I thought something will happen. And actually the next day I'd applied on a whim for a bit of funding from Creative Scotland. This was 2013. 2014, the Commonwealth Games was coming to Glasgow, and I'd applied to create a show with my kids. Mental. They were 3 and 6 at the time, and I created a show about the Commonwealth Games coming to our city, arriving on our doorstep, and what that meant for our family and things. And it was a parallel theme around motherhood and things like that. So we created this lovely little show, and I was like, this is it. I want to make theatre. This is gorgeous. It got really lovely reviews. It was a tiny wee show. Obviously, it had a 3-year-old in it, so we didn't perform it late at night. So I got really excited about that, and so I applied for one show, didn't get any funding for that. So I shaped another one, and you spend weeks developing these projects, and I didn't get funding for that. And I just went, do you know what? No, okay, repurpose, pivot. I said to someone recently, I feel like I'm going to be pivoting till I die. So I was like, well, I've fallen out of love with trying to get funding to make theatre. How can I use my skills and my love of theatre in a different way? And so I started really leaning into just the whole world of participatory arts, of supporting people to be more creative in their everyday lives. And I found that I could use my theatre skills in, like, when I put on retreats, you can just use that kind of theatricality to turn the event up a little bit, just to go up a notch so that you can heighten an event, make it more special, make it more magical. I developed 2 social enterprises around this time. One was around beadwork, which is where the retreats come in, reducing social isolation in older people, well, mostly older ladies, through craft, textiles, beading. I still keep that going. I have a pop-up bead shop. I'm looking at boxes of it over there right now. This looks very calm and professional. That side's chaos. I occasionally show it to people to make them feel better if they feel that their background's too chaotic. And the other social enterprise was around young people and accreditation in the arts and things. And I also had freelance practice producing events and being a kind of arts consultant type. And I had my best year ever in 2019. I finally, got enough money in the bank to feel quite secure. I got a coach. My income doubled that year. I'm not crediting it entirely to the coach, but that was certainly part of a process. But I knew it was sugarly ground. Sugarly is a very good Scottish word. It was on a sugarly peg. And I wanted some way of broadening my portfolio of work that wasn't reliant on arts funding. Also, I wanted to be able to go into a networking space and have something to actually sell. I had I did have an elevator pitch, but it wasn't, you walk into a random networking space in the middle of Glasgow and not many people want a participatory arts project in that room. But lots of people need a coach. Or maybe they don't know it yet. Maybe I'm there to convince them. Anyway, so that's what my decision was like. Yes, let's start coaching. It's not reliant on arts funding. So, I became a coach. I signed up to the diploma in January 2020. And because I just thought something's coming. I thought it might be Brexit. I didn't know what it was. Something was coming that was going to really affect the arts world. Maybe I am slightly psychic there. I don't know. My gran thinks the whole family was. So maybe my gran was right. Thank goodness, right? Because this time 2 years ago, I lost every contract I had lined up for what was supposed to be my best year yet. And I had to go through a grieving process of grieving the career that I thought I was going to have, short-term wise, the work I thought I was going to have for 2020, it just all disappeared. So I leaned into the coaching, kind of fast-tracked on that. I set up my business, I think I launched the website before I'd finished the 4th module because there was nothing else. I had to do something.
Can I pause you for a second, Sarah? Because there was something there you said, and I want to come back to the rest of the narrative, but there was something there at that transition point. It's worth exploring, I think, because I'm doing an interview with Lucy soon, who was also part of the mentoring group. And she also said she went through a grieving process when she lost her business in 2020. And I'm curious, so there was a point where you lost all your contracts. How did you pick yourself up in some way? And what was the period of time between losing the contracts and beginning to find another source of revenue? Like, what was that journey? And then we'll go back to the narrative itself.
Yeah, there was a month, May 2020, I earned £75 that month. But I'm very community minded. I've always been about community, collaboration, partnership working. And it wasn't just me going through it, we all were. So that made it a lot easier. And also, I think because I've always sort of worked in a world where nothing was certain, even when I was sort of employed by the theatre company, we were still chasing funding. Very rarely would you know how you were going to be paid a few months down the line. The longest, I think there was a 3-year, got 3 years funding for my salary. But I was like mid-20s at that point. I had no idea how certain that was. And that's the longest I've ever had, and now it's, I don't know how I'm going to be paid in June at the moment. So I suppose I've had a lot of years of training of uncertainty, which made the pandemic slightly easier.
Yeah.
Slightly. It was still brutal.
Great. Thanks for answering that. That's useful. Right. Head on back to your narrative. So there we are, 2020.
Yeah. So yeah, what skills do I have? How can I make money? So the beading stuff came in because I had this bead shop sitting here that obviously wasn't going anywhere. So I do personal shopping sessions with keen beadwork ladies. It's the only time I use the phrase ladies, but they're my beading ladies. It seems to fit. And so, someone would come with a pattern that they wanted to make, and we would talk on Zoom, and I worked out really quickly how to get a second camera on Zoom to show my hands, and we'd color match and things. It was an enjoyable experience. I mean, it earned me pennies, £75 in May. Yeah, so then it was like, right, let's do the coaching. And then around the summertime, I think it was around June, July, someone said, I really need someone to do training on how to run workshops on Zoom. I was like, I can do that. Sort of. I had been thinking about it. I'd done a mentoring project with Mozilla, who run Firefox, a few years before, and that was on Zoom, and it was about how to create virtual spaces that felt human and connected. So I'd started the thinking. I got to the point of like prototyping some different ways of connecting. This was mainly focused on teachers and sort of arts educators. But I couldn't get anyone to go on Zoom. I couldn't get anyone to be a guinea pig and prototype it with me. So I parked that project. suddenly, oh, there's a thing. So it was in demand, and I've now sort of trained hundreds of people in how to deliver, creatively facilitate on Zoom, whether that's an actual creative workshop, you're actually teaching a creative art form, or just, adding more creativity into delivery of any kind of workshop facilitated event. And then from there, it's just kind of built. So I recently taught a fabulous animation studio in Ireland, who were looking to reshape their outreach program, but they realized that they'd never trained any of their animators and the people on the team how to facilitate. So they just go and do a talk, and it was a very passive experience, saying I don't want this to be an entirely passive experience for the audience, because interactions it's where I learn. That's my learning style. I learn by doing. So I need to fire in and do stuff and then go, oh, right, let's do it this way. So yeah, the facilitation kind of built. I've been sort of still producing different projects and things. Finally, the retreats, I needed to find a new venue, and the venue is absolutely everything for a retreat. And I've finally found this amazing one. So the retreats are coming back in. But yeah, they could be seen as very disparate parts. And I think this is what me and Nick were talking about in terms of this conversation today. They could be quite... well, they could. My mentor, Nick Bolton, told me they could be entirely separate businesses. I was like, you know what? I've been there. I had 2 social enterprises and my freelance stuff. I had 3 different websites, 3 different social medias. And actually, what that did for me was fragment to the point that I just didn't bother developing social media audiences or in any of them, really. It was always like an add-on. Yeah. So yeah, that's where I am right now.
Picture, Sarah. Sorry, I think you forgot one piece, which is carpe diem. Let's just complete the picture.
Oh, yeah.
How do you bring this all together?
Yes. So last year I started working with an online business manager because I had a few different things that I needed doing. One was moving my website, which I absolutely didn't want to do by myself. I needed to move my email provider. Those are just wee technical things, but I also really wanted to develop my presence online because I love being on Zoom. I love working on Zoom. I have no intention to go back to face-to-face coaching. I think I did like 2 coaching sessions face-to-face before the pandemic hit. I like it. I like this intimacy. There's also, this is maybe going into too much of theatre stuff, but there's a slight artifice about Zoom that creates a temporary autonomous space for you to work in that isn't sort of grounded in reality. It's a kind of a space which you can play with and do different things with. But yes, so I started working with this online business manager, and we were looking at different options. I knew I wanted to develop some courses, or basically I wanted passive income. I need to create things that can then sell on their own, pretty much. So yeah, I created my first course in October, November, December last year, and the feedback was fabulous. So I created a course called Carpe Diem, which is using all the stuff that we know, the values, the passion, the purpose, the strengths, supporting people to, get shit done, excuse the French, in a way that's very kind of heart-led. So yeah, and that exists as a course with just quick sort of 5-minute videos, but lots of them with a workbook, so that busy people, because most of my clients are busy. A lot of my clients are, are mums or a kind of similar stage in life as me, where time is your most precious commodity. So I wanted to create a course that didn't require, I need to sit down for an hour every day or whatever. You could dip in and out, or you could just cram it when it suited. So yeah, that's happened. I was kind of hoping it would fly off the shelf when I launched it in January. It didn't. But it's now there. Yeah. And for a theatre person, that's odd. Maybe if I was a filmmaker, I'd feel differently, but I'm not used to that creating something that can then be there for years.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's just get the picture dead right, and then we'll dive into like how you did it. So we've got Carpe Diem, which is an online course. You've got facilitation training. You've got coaching. You're doing one-to-one coaching. Yep. And then you've got the other work you do, like beading and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of more, sounds like it's more, in a sense, impact work. Would that be right? Like enterprise, social enterprise, or is it still a business?
You can't categorize it like that, Nick. No, it's all the same stuff. What I do is, in essence, I'm leaning into my skills, which is about enthusing, bring positivity, some communication stuff with people.
Right.
And I do that sometimes intimately, one-to-one, through my coaching practice, through training and facilitation, which is all kind of creativity focused in some way, but it's also about confidence and well-being and just making a better version of yourself and things. And then there's retreats and events and things like that, and projects, sometimes some research and consultancy stuff for other people, but it's all kind of connected to that theme.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I mean, that's really good to know, because you've already named the higher chunk that connects all your pieces. Because I think when we spoke 2 years ago, whenever it was, and I said, well, you could have separate businesses. The thing is, like, if you can find something that connects them, then it makes sense to have them within one business. So say it again. What do you feel is the connecting thread through all of the stuff you do?
The connecting thread is, because I suppose with the coaching, I should probably add this in, my desire to be outside of the creative world and have separate funding stream. It didn't pan out, because who do I coach? I coach creatives and people who run creative businesses, because they're naturally attracted to me because of my experience, even though it's non-directive. People still want someone who gets it. And so I've admitted that my desire to suddenly break into the corporate sphere is just rubbish. It just doesn't, it's not me. So yeah. I never really wanted to be a corporate coach, but I think there was a desire to make more money.
More consistently as well, I suspect.
I think there's a desire for consistency, but in the Clifton Strengths Finder, where you've got the 34 strengths, the bottom one for me is consistency. Okay.
Great, thank you. So let's get into how you get your clients then, because I think that's always, you only started mid 2020, and here you are with this multi-part business that connects various themes. How do you go about getting clients? How do you go about growing your business? What's your general approach to that sort of thing?
I think the approach, and I don't want people to think that I'm massively successful all the time. I'm still hustling and chasing stuff, and sometimes worrying about how I'll pay the bills the following month. Sometimes it's a bit more cushy, but there's no look at me. I'm a however many figures you want to name. I'm a 42-figure coach. No, it is always a hustle, and my whole career has been a hustle, because I've always worked in uncertain ways. I needed to find a way, and this is something I had a massive breakthrough last autumn. I needed to find a way to be consistent online. Consistency is not my skill. And so I have developed a way of communicating. It is a gentle way. So it's a slow burn. So I show up on Instagram and LinkedIn every single day. Then you'll look back and go, oh, she missed that weekend. So maybe the consistency isn't always there, but nearly every day I'm there on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. I've got a big issue about too many emails. So my email list just sends out one email a month. My online business manager does not like that, but I'm like, no, I'm only doing one a month. I don't, because some people just delete them, the data and the ecological impact of too many emails. I'm not having it. So one a month, and people really love that email. I put a lot of love into that email, and people say, oh, it's one that I actually look forward to opening. So that's really nice. I do one blog post a month, and sometimes, revisit older blog posts. And I do a book review on Instagram and LinkedIn every Friday. It's just a little video. And that is all very much me, authentically, honestly me. So it's a little bit scatty. It's a little bit, it's creative and enthusiastic. So it's showing in a slow burn kind of way, this is who I am. This is what it'd be like to work with me. So it isn't getting direct results, that maybe, if I was like hard selling on a webinar, free webinar, come to this and then buy this program, yes, that's what marketing people, think. is a good idea, but it just doesn't suit me. So very much it's the slow burn, but also through putting stuff out there, having really interesting conversations with people, I start to really learn and really look at who my ideal clients are. And my ideal clients aren't people who necessarily like a lot of posts and interact with a lot of posts, but they read them. And so that it might be that I've got maybe 4 different things that I've put out there into the universe. When I'm talking to somebody, they'll refer to them, and they've had no interaction with me at all, but they have been interacting. I just wasn't aware of it. So it's slowly paying off, but I think in a couple of years' time that it will be a different thing. And also, you know, when you're mentoring, Nick, you were talking about 4 different approaches. I don't remember the other 3 because I was just like that one. And you were it's a bit of an uncomfortable one because some people do like calling themselves an expert, but the 4th one was about being a thought leader and about, you know, putting stuff out there, putting your opinion, your thoughts, your ideas out there to establish yourself as a thought leader in your field. And that's the route I'm on.
Yeah, great. It's funny you say it's a slow burner, and I agree with you, it is, but here you are a year and a half later. So, you know, succeeding. So it's not too slow, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of interesting.
It's true. Yeah. I'm paying my bills.
Yeah.
I'm paying my bills. And every month, you know, one of my core values is optimism. And sometimes I accuse myself of not really living that, you know, in the panic moment when I'm like, oh, maybe I should just get a job.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better at recognizing I'm having that job panic again. Yeah. And actually what I need to do, because I don't really fit a box, you know, that's why I responded to you when you were trying to put my stuff in a box. I don't put it in a box. I don't really fit a box, but it's that realization that if you don't do that, then you need to create the boxes for people to then know who you are and how they can work with you. Yeah. Like Ruth Jones, who I adore, and James Corden, who maybe I adore slightly less, but when they weren't getting the acting roles because they were large, they realized they had to write fat friends. They'd never written before, but they realized they had to lean into writing to create the role that they wanted to play. And you know, you hear lots of stories in a similar vein. And I suppose that's the journey I'm on right now in terms of creating my courses, creating retreats and different opportunities, different ways for people to engage with me. So I'm creating those frameworks because I'm not someone that people think, oh, the person I need for that job is Sarah Longfield, because I don't really necessarily fit the job description.
Something that's coming across, I do want to get to how you transition from a slow burn content piece to them actually reaching out to you. I want to come back to that, but something that's really coming across from you is the authenticity with which you're approaching your business. So there was a temptation to do corporate and you're like, it's not really me. There was the temptation to split, or not temptation, but the advocacy on my part to split your business in multiple parts. You're like, not really me. And at each level, and then there's the kind of, well, how do I niche myself? Well, I'm not a niche, but I can find ways to communicate who I stand for people. So there's something very, very important there around how you're being true to yourself. And a lot of things I noticed with that some coaches is they tend to be like, what are the rules of the game I should play by? Of business. I kind of wonder if you maybe just share a little bit about your philosophy around how you think about staying true to yourself rather than molding yourself to how things should be done.
I think I've always been a pirate. My favorite book is Be More Pirate. Don't know if you've read it. That's my book recommendation for you all.
Yeah.
Good. It's a great one. A good pirate, not one of the evil ones. But yeah, I have always been one, and it took me quite a while to realize that not all pirates need to be punky anarchists and edgy. And this is partly how I fell out with Creative Scotland funding theatre, is because my theatre was provocative, but it was provocative with a feather duster rather than a pointy stick. And I don't provoke with a pointy stick, but you know what's kind of encouraged in kind of desired perhaps by arts funders is something far more edgy than what I was offering. But I was also looking to cater to a different audience who aren't really necessarily represented in a lot of the kind of mainstream arts funding. So yeah, I think it's that realization that just because I provoke with a feather duster doesn't mean I'm not a pirate. And pirates question the status quo, and they rebel against rules that don't work. And so, yeah, you will catch me if you have if we share a glass of wine at some point, I will say the shoulds, you can pick me up on them. It's very good talking to coaches because they always go, that's a should, isn't it? Yes. You still fall into the trap. But I think in general, because I have totally carved my own path throughout my career, I'd much rather find a way to just go, okay, what feels right for me, rather than what am I supposed to do? Yeah. I appreciate that's a lot easier for me to do that. I'm not coming breaking out of the corporate world to become a coach or something where I've had, people in that position will have had a very different experience and structure around them for their working life. Yeah. I've always just made it up as I went along. So yeah, I think I'm fortunate in that sense that I've had years of training with it, but it's not to say that you can't then do it if you haven't had those years of training. It just requires I'm not a perfectionist. I think that helps. I fly by the seat of my pants. I'd rather, learn by doing. So I'd rather fire in with something that's half there, yeah. Or maybe it's more than half there, but I might not feel it's ready, but it's like, just fire in, let's see how it goes. And you refine and you get better.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's go back to, if I may, to the, I always feel like it's a little bit of a boring approach I take to these interviews because I'm fascinated by the nuts and bolts of business, but I always think it's useful as well for newer coaches to kind of go, oh, okay, that's how it's done. So there you are doing your content and you're doing your Instagram posts and you've got your website. What's the process by which somebody then comes to you as a potential client, as a prospect?
There isn't some really clear funnel that's really simple. Every client's come to me differently, I think. Recommendation does play a part. I do have a pre-existing network. Although, with that network, it's not like, my choice to be this kind of multifaceted portfolio business means that I'm not the go-to coach or the go-to facilitator or the go-to creative producer or whatever it is I'm choosing to be that day. So there is personal recommendation, but that usually comes through me meeting people and engaging with people through just nice conversation. So yeah, being at networking things, the right networking things, finding the right places virtually. I'm not leaving the house for networking. Yeah.
What would that look like, Sarah? Just because I don't know about online networking in that sense. What do you mean by virtual networking? What would that be?
So like there's an arts and culture group that sprung up as part, during the first lockdown, that's come out of LinkedIn, which is sort of based in London. That's really grown. And so, yeah, popping into that occasionally. And they do speed networking. So you have 5-minute conversations with people. I'm part of the RSA. I'm a fellow of the RSA. So there's interesting conversations to be had there. And they've got a coaching network. So I go to some of their events and chat to people. And it's not just coaches who go to that, but it's kind of a coaching approach to looking at different topics that affect us. The last one was about AI. It was fascinating. So things like that, a couple of different arts networks. In general, I think the general sort of business networking doesn't really work for me because people don't know where to put me, and that makes them nervous.
Yeah. Can I ask, I love to dig deeper sometimes into the tactics. Sounds like you're doing it deliberately, but the way you operate in that kind of space. So there you are, you're in this space and you have these multiple different things you do. You do facilitation training and you do coaching and you do the retreats and you do like all these things. You're in a space networking. How does I don't know if you can tell me this, Sarah, but how does the conversation go such that you can go like, this is probably what I need to be talking about? Or do you just kind of like chat about politics and life and then maybe they go like, what's the journey?
Sometimes it's broad because I just think, if I just have a good conversation with people, actually that will lead to things. I will usually get in there some way of explaining I do a few different things. I always get my website in there. So there's a tactic there. And then it's very much seeing, like I was at a participatory arts sort of event, and I can see with the way the conversation was going, and I thought, right, the thing I need to talk about here is my beadwork retreats, you know, because and people like, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, and I'll be at another event where actually what would be really useful is to talk about the co-producing facilitation I did for the Tate last year, you know, and it's like, oh, let's just pick up one thing. Yeah. And then, like, I delivered training for Trinity College London and one of the Arts Ward panel, which Arts Ward's a bit like a Duke of Edinburgh, but in the arts. My previous social enterprise for young people had a contract with Trinity. So I've carried on the training panel. This is a bit naughty, don't tell them. But at the end of the training, I always sort of make sure my website goes in there, because I'm working with a lot of creative people who are kind of the sort who'd want to work with me. So I don't like promote. Sure. I say at the beginning, I'm a facilitator, I'm a coach, and I produce projects. Let's talk about Arts Ward. And then at the end, I say, if you want to get in touch with me or see more about what I do, here's my website. Yeah. And I have gained a client or two through that. Yeah. So it is that trail of breadcrumbs rather than a sledgehammer.
I'm just thinking about whether you can, you know, take some Darren Brown techniques and do some hypnotic suggestion through the approaches you use, and, you know, just like they see Sarah up in the right corner, the word just catches their eye for a moment, and then bit by bit you hypnotize them. I don't know if that's something you would consider as ethical or not.
I know, that's slightly Machiavellian, isn't it? There's a fine line though between, you know, Machiavellian antics and just being a good entrepreneur. And I think you just, sorry.
I've got one more question to ask you, Sarah, and then I'm going to open up to Q&A. And then I want to also find out, you know, what your website is for other people. But the question I've got is, you know, we've talked about different approaches to work you do, the facilitation and so on, and it comes under a higher chunk. What would you say, I don't know if you can put words to this, but what would you say is the transformation you bring about for people overall? If somebody could say, Sarah Longfield, the transformation she brings about broadly is this, what would that be?
I galvanize people into action. I think that's it. It used to be groups when I was mostly training, but I think with coaching as well, it's about insight, enthusiasm, positivity, encouragement.
Great. Thanks, Sarah.
being a cheerleader, I suppose, but with the purpose of get on with it.
Yeah.
Someone described my coaching as what? No, it was in our ICF ACC mentoring. The velvet glove, the iron fist with the velvet glove.
Yeah.
I'm going with that because that's a kind of analogy that isn't usually that my fluffy feather duster doesn't, you know. Yeah, exactly. I like that one. Yeah. Because I am also I'm really organized and quite pragmatic, which doesn't necessarily go with the whole artsy thing. I used the word artsy. I can't believe I did that. It's a negative. It's a negative, but you have to carry on, you know, oh, she's arty, so she won't be that organized. Yeah. It's not good. So I am, you know, you can be so many things at the same time, you know, you can be happy and sad. So I think that pragmatism comes in there. And when I work with people, it's like, well, I'm an activator, so let's get stuff done. Yeah.
Great. Well, you've got stuff done. Congratulations on what you've done over the last 18 months or so. It's amazing. So well done. And how can people find out more about you? What's your website?
The website's saralongfield.co.uk. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Oh yeah, please.
I should put the link in, shouldn't I? Hang on. I'm gonna do my Cyberman face to get copy.
While you're doing that, I'm just going to go down to gallery view and fabulous. Thank you so much, Sarah. While you're doing that, I'll invite people to put their virtual hands up. So if you've got a question for Sarah around how she's grown her business or how she messages her business, whatever comes up for you, feel free to put your hand up and we'll go to Q&A.
While people are thinking, I just wanted to say hello to somebody in this room who I haven't seen since I was 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
Which is Dr. Lip. I don't know if you remember Dr. Lipong, but you gave me some treatment for my glandular fever when I was 15, 16 years old, and you got me through my GCSEs. I'd missed so much school and I was going to fail on my GCSEs and nothing was working. The doctors were just like, oh, she just doesn't like school. I loved school. I was just tired all the time. And I went to see this amazing man and he connected me to my subconscious. And so every night when I was revising, he got me to talk to my subconscious and I passed all my GCSEs. So thank you, Lip.
That is absolutely amazing. Lip is one of our huge regulars to Coaches and K's, one of our most loyal followers, aren't you, Lip? It's such a fantastic story. Thank you. Lip, jump on in.
Oh, you're on mute, Lip.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for that recommendation. And I did remember your contacting me. And yes, it's very difficult to describe what I do. But anyway, my question to you is, you are doing retreats and then you do this virtual facilitation. How do you decide what topics do you do for your retreat, which I assume is in person?
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps you can give me a couple of examples of what topics you address in retreat and how you differentiate between what's suitable for retreat and for facilitation virtually.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that that's shifted and is just only sort of cementing now after the last 2 years. And it's a bit like, Naomi Campbell's, I only get out of bed for a certain amount of money. I only leave the house for really important things. I leave the house for social stuff, absolutely. I'm an extrovert, can you tell? So, I really like being with people. But for work, I think this is where I'm really leaning into with retreats. So the last 14 years, all my retreats have been sort of craft based. So it's about taking mostly older women away on holiday, some of which, go on holidays like that all the time, but some were putting away £10 of their pension every week to be able to afford to go on my retreats. It's a really special thing. So, and then pouring a huge amount of love and care and attention into that. But the retreat, I'm building one for female entrepreneurs just now, which has been a long time cooking in the head. But now I found this venue, I'm like, yes, this is it. It's even got a hot tub. It's perfect. And it's in a beautiful setting in rural Scotland. So that will be, a real chance to relax, unwind, reflect on your business and drive forward. And then there are others in the pipeline, but we'll see how that one goes. Because it's a tough time as well for entrepreneurs, for all of us, all our bills are tripling. Oh my God. So to be in the business where you're asking people to part with their money for personal or business development is tricky, I think, right now, even far, far trickier than it was this time last year. This time last year, virtually everyone I spoke to in an introductory call for coaching signed up. I'm not doing anything different this year, but I'm maybe getting 25% of people signing up. Or they're signing up, a month or 2 months later, they're thinking about it. Whereas last year, there was an adrenaline, I think, from the trauma. There was an adrenaline that was fueling things. And also, all the way all the stories were going, we were then going to go into the roaring 20s, right? We were going to get over this pandemic and then it was going to be sunshine and parties and champagne. And no, our bills have tripled and there's war in Europe. It's a very different place. So I am cautious of that with the developing of retreats and things because they're not cheap. I'm certainly not going to charge a fortune, but I do need to pay my bills. So yeah, I'm cautious in terms of developing products just now, and I'm thinking lower end in terms of online courses and things just now as well, more affordable things.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for getting me my GCSEs.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, Luke. Now let's go to Jerry.
Thanks, Nick. And hi, Sarah. Lovely to meet you, and really enjoying listening to you as well. So very, very enjoyable. I've got a few questions, but the first one really was around a lot of what you've talked about is about feeling and learn by doing, etc., and things like that. But I'm just curious around kind of where strategy kind of features in kind of your forward plan, or are you very sort of present, or how far ahead in the 2-year window, how much strategy has come into mind, and do you lay out plans and then follow them, or is it, you said you make it up as you go along? So where the sort of strategy feature in your plans? I'd be curious around that.
I struggle with strategy. That's a should. You know, I always feel like I should have a better strategy. And I suppose it's there. I really don't like writing things down. I resent ever being given sort of targets for anything. That's why I'm totally unemployable. Could you imagine being my boss? You know, if someone gives me a KPI, I do everything I can to not achieve it, because there's the rebel in me doesn't. You can imagine where I come out on Gretchen Rubin's quiz. Accountable to nobody. But yeah, I always have a kind of idea, like at the moment I feel I'm 1 year into a 3-year kind of plan where I'm looking to consolidate all my stuff into one place, winding up thank you, Ange. Winding up my social enterprises, because I don't need them anymore. Pre-pandemic they existed for a reason, but my approach to work, the work that's available, and the world has shifted. So I need to wind up those businesses. I did one last year and I'm in the process of the other one that'll be the end of this month. It will stop trading and streamline. So everything's all under one roof. You know, some people will look at my website and go, but who are you? They're not my ideal client. That's fine. They can think that. My ideal client will go, oh, that's interesting. And oh, that's interesting. And oh, so it's kind of collecting fabulous people together who might want to come on a retreat with me, might want to do a workshop with me, might want some coaching from me. And I'll probably want to work with them in some way too. So we can have a two-way kind of conversation and financial exchange as well at the end of the day. So there's that kind of loose strategy that I'm building this mini Sarah world. And the online courses are going to be part of that. They're a bit slower because it does take a lot of time to develop one and get it right and put it out there. And you're not obviously paid for that at that point. But the courses will be part of it. And I'm just going to have to. It's a vanity project, but I need to write a book. But yeah, but more than that, I don't strategize. I maybe will set, what I'm up to this month, what I want to achieve this month. And try not to let the creative magpie in me go, oh, there's a shiny new thing. Let's just dump all the stuff I'm thinking about now and go over and do that thing. Yeah.
Before you ask your next question, Jerry, I'd like to just add to that, if I may, Sarah, which I think that if anyone can look at what they're doing and broadly say it stays roughly the same, like their approach is broadly the same on a consistent basis, then they have a strategy. That might be different from planning. So planning 2 years ahead is not necessarily the same as strategy, but I think Sarah's definitely got a strategy. She might not have put it down anywhere, but let's say, for instance, on a month-to-month basis, she was going, right, now I'm going to do thought leadership. No, I'm not. Now I'm going to do Facebook advertising. Now I'm going to do Google ads. That's not a strategy. But the fact she's consistently doing something, that's a strategy, but it's not the same as a plan.
See, he's good, isn't he? Thank you. I'm strategic. Yes, actually, Jerry, I have a really solid strategy. Really, this is why you need him in your life as a mentor. It's great.
I didn't hear the first bit.
Oh, which, Jerry?
Sorry?
You didn't hear which first bit?
No, I did. I was just saying, no, I did hear it, but I'm just saying you.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I thought it's tongue in cheek. Yeah. So
right, go for it. Ask your second question.
Yeah, the second one. Sorry, just very quickly. I think you mentioned around kind of a couple of wobbles. I suppose the question was, is there an imposter inside of you? And is it a beast you want to put in a box, or have you used that to fuel kind of your journey?
Yes, absolutely. There is. We've all got it, haven't we? And I think, people who are coaches, perhaps because we're empathetic and care, it's maybe even stronger. But what do I do with it? I think it's useful. Like I was working with my coach, he's an Animas, Animite, and he got me making contracts for my inner critics, and that was really useful because I think I do need some inner critics, because otherwise I can be a little bit spontaneous and a little bit, you know, wayward. So I need someone to stop me jumping off the metaphorical cliff. Someone in my head, personifying it there. But do you know, I think the thing is, the more I do things my way, in a way that just feels genuinely, honestly me, the less imposter there is. It's when I'm trying to be something I'm not that I feel, you know, if I'm in a space full of people who aren't really my tribe, I don't really get them, they don't really get me, or if I'm doing a piece of work that I feel isn't playing to my strengths. I did a bit of work in the autumn. It was just a bit of creative research for a project. And I was encouraged to apply for it. So I did. I was like, I'm not a researcher. And they're like, that's fine. You know, we don't want a researcher. We want someone with a sort of creative approach. And I was like, right. I was like, but I'm not going to write the research report that you probably want at the end of it. No, we don't want that. We don't want that. And I struggled with that. I procrastinated over that bit of work because I felt like a fraud. And I did an all right bit of work, and I produced, you know, my own version of a report at the end. And then they came back and wanted more, and they wanted the research report that I told them wasn't my skill set, because, you know, they wanted to be open and let's work in a different way, let's work innovatively. But then the kind of different version didn't fit the box. It's for a council, so councils don't really want to work out the box, really. They might want to in the recruitment stage, but they don't in the end of the project. And I think that's where the imposter gets the biggest. But if I ever feel like, if I've come out of a coaching session and I feel like it hasn't gone that well, yeah, the imposter doesn't play a part there. It just makes me feel like, well, I didn't really use my coaching skills to the best that I could have done. And I just would, you know, there's just then a desire to improve and make it better next time.
Thanks, Sarah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. If I may, I like adding on to your thoughts, Sarah, and I would say that from my perspective, an imposter is only an imposter if it's telling you lies. You know, so if you knew you couldn't do a research report and they wanted a research report, it's not really an imposter, it's a good old honest
it's just the
part
truth.
of your brain telling you. Exactly. So I think it becomes an imposter when you're like, hold on, who am I to be something that actually you could be or are already? That was my perspective on it.
Yeah, that's true. Occasionally, like I had this one inner critic who was a friend that I was really close to pre-pandemic, but we had very different pandemics. I think some of you might identify with that. You know, because I saw it as an opportunity to, you know, let's change, try new things, let's get on with it. And it was quite a positive approach. And she found it really hard and kind of hunkered down and shut off. And so it was really hard to stay connected, meaningfully connected through that process. And also, you know, I'd just started the diploma, and she had said, because I was questioning whether to sign up for the diploma or not, and she voiced at that point that she thought coaching was a bit of a cowboy profession. And so, you know, that kind of played out. So if I posted about an arts project or something online, and I never really check who's kind of really, you know, I see who's connecting with me in a business sense, but I never really keep an eye. That friend didn't like my birthday post, how dare she? You know, I'm not really that sort of person. But I noticed that she would always comment and like the art stuff, but if I posted anything about coaching, there was a silence. And she became a critic in my head. You know, and I realized I was struggling to put stuff out because I felt like I was writing stuff that she would see. And I had to do quite a bit of work there to kind of go, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter what she thinks. Because I was starting to feel like, oh yeah, maybe I'm a cowboy. Maybe I'm just trying to, you know, make money selling snake oil. Now, of course I'm not. But yeah, an imposter kind of grew around that concept of who am I? What do I think I'm doing? And I had to, yeah, she was one of the ones my coach got me writing a contract with, and she's gone now. She's not there and talking to me anymore. It's great. Coaching, the power of coaching. Powerful, isn't it?
That's really fascinating, Sarah, that the external real human being becomes an internal critic that you then have to work through in your own. Wow, it's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Don't start me on my mother.
We won't, don't worry. We've got 7 minutes left, so we definitely won't do that.
Yeah.
So as I said, we have got 7 minutes left. So I'm kind of curious if there are any final questions before we wrap up today. If not,
I'd be keen to hear from others, actually, you know, about, you know, whether anything I've been talking about rings a bell, or if you're in a similar place, or maybe you're in a completely opposite place, you know, rather than a question. Rachel.
Let's go to Rachel. And I just want to frame this, Rachel. I've literally got to be on another call at 12 o'clock on the dot. So, but Rachel, over to you. Oh, where are you gone? There you go.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you, Sarah. And I think there was a couple of things that really resonated with me, and particularly around the authenticity and kind of breaking the rules and not fitting the mold. And there's kind of lots that I'm doing at the moment, thinking about, right, what is it that I am bringing that is like me and that authentic self, and that might connect with people. And that just really resonated with me. And I just kind of was reading Matthew Said's book Rebel Ideas, and there was something that research in there that he talked about, actually the people that were succeeding in a particular environment were the ones that felt comfortable breaking the mold and like being more innovative and doing things. And I think there's something really in that, where you notice the difference of people in corporate worlds that are willing to not accept the way things need to be, but be more innovative, and how I can tap into that natural kind of rebel or pirate that I felt in corporate to be able to support other people. So I hadn't really, I suppose it'd been like, again, breadcrumbs that have been coming along, and I just really connected to that when you shared it. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Hope it fuels further pirate activity.
Thanks, Rachel.
Anyone else?
This is Sarah's facilitation mode coming out now. She's determined.
Sorry, Nick, I'm taking over.
No,
I want to hear from Ange, because she's my twin.
Ange, come on in.
Yes, apologies, I've not had my camera on. I've been feeling a bit introverty today, even though I'm an extrovert, but I've really enjoyed the whole discussion. And I'll tell you something, you just absolutely put a light bulb on for me about the external inner critic. And it's flagged up what I've been doing for 6 years is not being bold on LinkedIn, in case previous colleagues go, who the hell does she think she is? And it's just given me permission to go, I'm me, actually. I've got pink hair, I'm me. So there. So thank you.
Good. Well, let's connect on LinkedIn, and I'll enjoy you being your true self there. I like LinkedIn. It's a much gentler, creative, friendlier space than it used to be. It's a nice place to hang out, I find.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Ange. That was a lovely reflection and a great place to end, I think. But thank you so much for sharing that. Sarah, thank you so much for the interview. I really enjoyed that. I knew it was going to be great. So thank you for being here. And as always, everyone, thank you very much for being here and participating, for your questions, your attention. And we've got loads of interviews coming up. Actually, I've got 10 more that we're working on putting on the site coming up over the next kind of couple of weeks. So keep your eye out and see you on the next few interviews. Thanks so much, Sarah. Bye for now.
Great.
Everyone.
Thank you. Keep in
Thank
touch,
you.
folks.